PDL Week 2. You know the drill. Let's just get right into it. First, the standings update. Of course, after 1 week, everyone is either 1-0 or 0-1. Dallas Dragapults and Drago's Strongest Warrior have a slight lead on game differential, but it is very much still anyone's season to win. And we have just one trade to announce this week. The Miami Palafins have made a free agent swap, dropping Frostmoth for Cryogonal. I know their coach said something in the Discord about having used Frostmoth multiple times at this point and wanting to try out a different support ice type. I think Cryogonal, I don't necessarily know what Cryogonal does in doubles, but it's very specially bulky, and it has some interesting stuff in its move pool for sure. I don't actually think I'm going to speculate right now on how they'll use it, but I think they could do some fun stuff with it if they want. So at this point, we could just cut to the replays, but I'm going to note that there are a couple of matchups that are not covered this week in the replays, because sometimes life gets in the way. It's a Discord draft league. We want every set to be done on time, but it doesn't always happen. So the Melodic Miraidon have forfeited this week against the, who'd they forfeit to? The Azure Bay Chatots. So I believe that will be scored as a 2-0 win for the Chatots. And we don't get to see that set played, but I'm sure both those teams will be back next week. And at the time of recording, the set between the Flatland Flat Sands and the Alaskan Absols has been granted an extension. So they'll play soon, and I'll probably just add them to next week's slate. But we won't be seeing them here. Still, we have 6 sets to go through, and it looks like all of them were some fun back and forth action. So let's just cut right to it now. And going through them in chronological order once again, we start off this week with Drago's Strongest Warrior versus the Varsity Farmboys. Okay, so Drago has brought the duo of Comfey and Tyranitar again that put in so much work last week. This time Comfey can also heal Corviknight, so I could see Corviknight running a bulky setup set. Especially since there's not a ton of offensive power on Drago's side otherwise. Grookey setting up grassy terrain again helps to keep their Pokemon healthy. Of course, grassy terrain buffs floral healing, and if the Corviknight terastallizes and turns off its flying typing, then it will benefit from grassy terrain recovery as well. But Grookey doesn't bring a lot of power by itself. Fake Out and Grassy Surge are largely what it has going for it. And then maybe like a priority Grassy Glide into Ursaluna or Politoed or something could do some damage at just the right moment. I don't know what Frogadier is doing here, unless they're going for the Swamp. They could actually be going for the Swamp, because Tyranitar and Corviknight are not especially fast, but you get them set up right and throw off Rock Slides or boosted Body Press or something, they could put in work. And I don't know what Substrika is going to do here. I could see it doing some speed control as well. On the other side, we have so they brought both Politoed and Ninetales, and they brought Politoed with Empoleon. We could see something like the Surf Spam from last week, but they also have Ninetales and Vileplume threatening Chlorophyll, Sleep Powder. Vileplume's not especially strong, but it gets some strong attacks as well. Could definitely be a threat to Tyranitar, although of course Tyranitar can turn off either one of those weathers. And then Ninetales can maybe threaten the Corviknight, or at least force a Terra out of it. So that's one possible mode for the Farmboys to bring here. The Bayleaf is here, being probably bulky and supportive again, and the Ursaluna. I've said before that I don't see a lot of supports for Ursaluna on this team, so I don't necessarily know what they're going to do with it, but Ursaluna is still a very strong offensive threat that has to be taken seriously. And Drago's Strongest Warrior doesn't necessarily have the best answers to Ursaluna on this team. I mean, Frogadier and Grookey both target its weaknesses, but they're not very strong. I think maybe something like a Body Press from Corviknight or a Low Kick from Tyranitar, if they brought that, is probably their best answer to Ursaluna, but they definitely have to take it seriously as a threat. And we'll get right into game 1. So it's Grookey Frogadier lead against Vileplume and Ninetales. So Farmboys are going with the Sun mode, and I'm assuming that at this point that Drago's Strongest Warrior wants to set up the Swamp with the Grass Pledge and Water Pledge, and sure enough, they do go for it. Ninetales just rips off an Overheat into Grookey. Does it have an Eject Pack? It does. Okay, so they get Politoed in. They brought both weathers. Vileplume knocks out Frogadier, and Vileplume is not Chlorophyll boosted anymore, but I mean, that opening with the Overheat and the Energy Ball, just straightforward attacking what's in front of them, did so much. Yeah, Drago's really going to have to make use of the swamp here to pull this one back. I think they have to have Tyranitar in the back, because you need something to do damage. It could be Comfey Tyranitar, but I don't think I want to see Comfey. I think I want to see another Pokemon that can do good damage. And I don't know what that is on their team. Maybe they have an offensive Substrika set, but we'll see what they bring in here. There's the Tyranitar, and there is the Comfey, so they are going for that. I mean, that could do it. Terra Flying. Is the Vileplume... Well, okay, the Vileplume is... Wait, did the Ninetales not have Drought? The Ninetales didn't have Drought the whole time. I didn't notice. I just assumed it had Drought. So it has to have Flash Fire. That's interesting, then. Why do you bring the Ninetales if you don't have Drought? And with the Vileplume in the lead? See, I was thinking about the speed interactions there, but then I realized the Vileplume isn't even boosted. I mean, it knocked Grookey out, sure. Maybe it's supposed to cover for the Corviknight? At least force that to Terra if it tries to set up? I don't know, but... Because I could see lead Corviknight here, but... In any case, the Vileplume is too slow to put Tyranitar to sleep, so it just gets knocked out by flying Terra Blast. Drago's Strongest Warrior might be in a position to pull this one back. The Pokemon on the other side are not especially strong. The Ninetales is going to be nerfed now by the Politoed's Rain. And taken out by a Rock Slide. Politoed flinches. And here comes the Ursaluna. Protecting probably to set up a Flame Orb. As they read that and knock out the Politoed. And it's down to just Ursaluna against these last two Pokemon on the other side. But of course, Tyranitar has gone Terra Flying, so they can't Earthquake it. They have to damage these Pokemon one at a time. Good Protect there from the Comfey. The Tyranitar goes for Brick Break, so it does have fighting coverage. And I don't think Ursaluna does enough damage here. Quickly enough to both Pokemon. No, Drago's Strongest Warrior takes game one. So the Swamp setup actually worked perfectly. They just sacked the two Pokemon in the lead spots. Doesn't matter, those weren't their strong hitters anyway. And then, as says in the chat here, Tyranitar is just too good. But we'll go to game two now. And we'll see what kinds of adjustments they both coaches make. As it's Grookey and Tyranitar lead this time against Bayleaf and Empoleon. I don't know what those are going to do. It's Air Balloon Empoleon. Makes sense when it's up against a lot of ground types. Tyranitar just goes right for the Terra Flying again. Empoleon protects around a Fake Out. Bayleaf goes for the Knock Off. And we see it was Assault Vest Tyranitar. Which makes sense. That's, even as a flying type, losing its Sand Boost going to hold up very well against all the special offense on the other side. But losing that Assault Vest then could be big. Let's see. As that was a huge protect from the Empoleon, avoiding the double target. Makes sense when Bayleaf doesn't look like a threat. But Helping Hand into what does Empoleon do here? I think it'll take a Brick Break. Oh, just Ice Beams the Tyranitar, and with no Assault Vest. Tyranitar takes a lot from that. And Terra Blast only does 59% to Bayleaf. Bayleaf, of course, being not too bad bulk-wise for an unevolved Pokemon and probably carrying an Eviolite. Now we get all our grassy terrain recovery. Of course, Tyranitar doesn't get that because it's a flying type now. Frogadier comes in. Are they going for the swamp now? Wait, what just happened? Oh, it's just the pledge combo. Both sides brought the swamp. And they knocked the Frogadier out, so now the swamp is only on the other side this game. Drago's Strongest Warrior brought the same Pokemon in a different order, but couldn't then bring the Frogadier safely to get set up. And it turns out their opponent had the swamp too, so that's a bit of a wash at best. They do get Tyranitar in next to Comfey now. But it takes so much damage from that Helping Hand boosted Ice Beam. Or it just takes another knockoff. As Empoleon tries to get rid of the Comfey. That makes a lot of sense too. The Comfey won't take another Flash Cannon. Empoleon will go down to another Brick Break. They haven't Terra'd, right? Yeah, they've only shown these two Pokemon. So unless Empoleon might have a good Terra type that protects it here, but otherwise it goes down to another Brick Break. But it should get a lot of damage off into something first. This is a tricky position though because... Well, I think what you do is you read a Protect from the Comfey. And you go Helping Hand Ice Beam into Tyranitar. I think that's the highest reward play. on Farmboys' side. They heal Pulse Empoleon, so everything I said about it not taking another attack you could forget, as it comfortably does after the heal Pulse. And that actually was a safer play. I didn't know they had that, I think, unless they'd shown it before. But that actually was a safer play than the one I said, so good call by them. And now we're just trading heals and big attacks, but the Empoleon can knock out the Comfey, exactly. Pretty safe to target when it just protected. So they can't trade heals anymore. Drago's Strongest Warrior is out of healing. And even if they weren't, I kind of think the Empoleon might have the advantage because of the freeze chance on Ice Beam. But as it is, this Empoleon could just sit here, and Drago's Strongest Warrior doesn't have enough offense to break through. They should probably protect around a Grassy Glide here, but instead they go Terra Grass. Flash Cannon. I don't know why they did that. Maybe they forgot about the Flying Terra, but... Oh, Empoleon goes down. So much for Empoleon sitting there forever, but now we get to see what two Pokemon Farmboys have in the back, and it's Ursaluna and Politoed again. Ursaluna gets set up. Politoed will go for an Ice Beam now, not quite KO. Tyranitar still bulky without the Assault Vest. But Politoed isn't quite taken out by that double target, as again, Grookey's Grassy Glide just isn't strong enough. So they'll finish Tyranitar off here. And I don't remember whether I finished this thought earlier, but Drago's Strongest Warrior just didn't have enough offensive power to break through. In Game 1, their plan worked when they let Grookey Frogadier set up the swamp. The opponent did not set up the swamp. And then Tyranitar could just go crazy. But in this game, switching up their lead order, I think it made their game plan kind of disjointed. Like, they kind of always... They got the Tyranitar Comfey duo in at one point, but the Empoleon was doing too much damage with the Bayleaf supporting it. But otherwise, they just kind of had like a weak Pokemon and Tyranitar on the field. They couldn't get Frogadier in safely. The opponent countered the swamp setup with their own swamp setup anyway. And yeah, Tyranitar was kind of left to try to win the game by itself and just wasn't able to do that. So it's tricky though. I think I'd like to see the Corviknight in Game 3, but I don't know what matchup that has into Empoleon. I mean, it's Terra Grass Empoleon, so depending on Corviknight's moves, it could beat it before or after Terra. But it has to be careful about taking... What does Empoleon have? Okay, Empoleon doesn't have a water attack, so it doesn't have to be careful. Oh, it does. It has Water Pledge. Showdown just displays it weirdly because of the combo. So yeah, Corviknight has to be careful about a rain-boosted Water Pledge, I would think. Maybe you bring Substrika in Game 3. That can threaten the Empoleon, but then that's not very strong unless you have some fun Terra Blast or something into Vileplume or Ursaluna. So it's a tough position. And even though Drago's Strongest Warrior did so well in Game 1, I actually don't know how they adjust to what happened to them in Game 2. But let's see if they can figure it out. As it's Grookey Corviknight lead against Ursaluna and Empoleon. The Corviknight is here. Is it going to go right for Iron Defense or something? Comfey in. Bayleaf in. There's the setup. Yeah, okay, bulk up. I forgot it gets that. But yeah, pretty safe bulk up there. We see the Politoed, so no Ninetales or Vileplume this game. Do you think they meant to put Drought on Ninetales and mixed it up like the Overgrow Venusaur last week? This was played a while ago. Maybe it even came up in the Discord and I'm not remembering. Maybe that's why they're not bringing Ninetales in these other two games. Anyway. Corviknight shows Brave Bird. If it has Brave Bird and Body Press, it might be able to do this, I think. But also, Farmboys have shown that they know they can target the Comfey. And that's kind of a weakness in the healing strat from... Okay, yeah, there's the Body Press from Drago. That Facade does so much damage to the Rock-type Tyranitar. And Ursaluna showed the Terra Fairy. So Body Press is not such a threat to it anymore. Corviknight is now forced to heal itself as Comfey has been forced off the field. And the Ursaluna shows Fire Punch, which with the Water Pledge almost knocks Corviknight out. And I just don't... There's just so much damage being threatened by the Farmboys right now. I don't know that Drago can handle it. That was a good big Body Press into Empoleon. Corviknight goes down. They just have to hope it's done enough damage at this point. For Tyranitar, probably, to close things out. I think you can bring Comfey in to support Tyranitar here. And they do. Because you're just trying to get off as much damage as you can, as quickly as you can. You keep Tyranitar healthy. You keep Tyranitar healthy, and you can probably be okay even if Comfey goes down. But instead, Tyranitar terastallizes and gets knocked out by a now neutral damage Facade. I haven't usually been looking at the chat when I do these replays, but I see here he said I thought I clicked Brick Break there on the Rock Slide. Into what? I don't know, but Tyranitar misses its window to close this game out, and now they just have Grookey and Comfey, and I think they just lose to Ursaluna from here. It can protect, Bayleaf can come in and heal it, yeah, or give it a helping hand. But I think probably go for Heal Pulse. Just to make sure, as Ursaluna will take a couple of priority attacks. Actually, I don't think Alluring Voice is priority, but Comfey is fairly fast anyway. But keeping Ursaluna healthy with the Heal Pulse, it doesn't really have to be worried. The Bayleaf put in work this week. It might make the thumbnail, we'll see. The Bayleaf really was the key to not folding against all those Tyranitar-centered game plans. And the Varsity Farmboys figure out the matchup and take week 2. Moving on now to Boston Biblically Accurate Maushold versus, I believe, Lightning Lancers. Okay. So, again, we have Armarouge and Male Meowstic. We can do manual terrain size spam. We have Maushold and Primeape. We can do nerfed Mouseape. And actually, with the Primeape potentially having an Eviolite, it could still be pretty strong in draft. And then they have Firewater Grass with Armarouge, Decidueye, and Rotom. I could see Rotom just like pivoting around, maybe burning stuff. I could see Decidueye, I don't know, just throwing off a Scrappy triple arrows or something. I mean, the Salamence is a bit of an issue for that, but can't cover everything with one Pokemon. As we have here on the other side. I don't know what the game plan is for this team. I mean, the Vulpix will set Hail. If it comes to a game, it'll set Hail. And the Crabominable can benefit from that. I don't really know what Crabominable does. It probably has Swords Dance or some kind of setup. I don't necessarily know how the rest of these pieces fit together this week, but we've seen that Crawdaunt can be strong. Salamence can be strong. Haunter is a stronger special attacker than you might think, but I think we're just going to have to dive into this one and see what happens. As it's Crawdaunt Indeedee lead against Decidueye and Meowstic. Wait, the Indeedee doesn't have Psychic Surge. Huh. I wonder what they're doing with that. But yeah, it gets flinched by the Fake Out. Decidueye gets Tailwind up. Meowstic drops to knock off, so I hope they don't have a size spam game plan in the back. But I don't think they did because the Rotom comes in. Terra Flying Crawdaunt does not turn off its electric weakness. Maybe it was covering for triple arrows or Leaf Blade. I mean, I would think so. But in any case, we get the Follow Me here from Indeedee. Rotom just goes right for Thunder. That's interesting. Do they have Rain Dance on Meowstic? It probably gets Rain Dance, I'm not sure. But Decidueye just gets deleted by the Flying Terra Blast, so that's what that Terra was for. And it's Armarouge in the back. They might have been trying to set up some Expanding Force stuff, or just boosting the Thunder and Hydro Pump from Rotom. That's pretty wild. It's Weak Armor, Weakness... Well, is it Weakness Policy? I see Weak Armor, Armarouge. I just kind of assume Weakness Policy, especially when it is going for Stored Power. That Thunder did so much damage to the Salamence, but it knocks out the Armarouge now. It shows Moxie. And shows that it can switch moves, so it's not choiced. And the Salamence Haunter, that game went by quickly. As the Indeedee, I don't know what Indeedee is doing without Psychic Surge there, but they just brought it with 3 strong offensive Pokemon and just kind of ran through whatever Spooky was trying to set up. So we'll see how Spooky adjusts to that in Game 2. The Thunder and Hydro Pump on the Rotom is really interesting to me. I feel like they must have a manual rain mode, but maybe not. Maybe they just like the damage from Thunder and are willing to accept the variance. In any case, of course, Hydro Pump is the only water move that Rotom gets. In any case, we see the snow mode here. Okay, we got Mouseape with Primeape instead of Annihilate, and we've got Vulpix, Crabominable, Snow. So both coaches really shaking things up here in Game 2. As it's Terra Fire Primeape and Terra Fairy Crabominable right off the bat. I don't know what the Primeape is covering for. The Crabominable is covering for a fighting attack, I would assume. But they go for the beat-up setup to make the Rage Fist stronger, as Vulpix sets Aurora Veil, and we finally get some damage. And that Rage Fist does 60% to Crabominable. That's respectable damage through the Aurora Veil. And Crabominable might be in trouble now. We still haven't seen its move this turn, but that was a bold use of the Terra for sure. As it just knocks out... Oh, well, okay. It just knocks out the Maushold with Drain Punch, gets almost back to full. So Crabominable is still able to put in work, but I don't think this Icicle Spear is going to knock out Decidueye. It's an Alolan Vulpix using a physical multi-hit attack. I wouldn't bet that you have loaded dice because there are at least 3 better items for this Vulpix to be running. But... So I think the Crabominable could still be overwhelmed here for sure. But hey, they did turn off its fighting weakness, as the Primeape actually goes for Bulk Up, and Leaf Blade doesn't do that much through the Aurora Veil. But... Well, okay. I mean, I kind of see the vision. Crabominable can Drain Punch Primeape, and Primeape can't really Drain Punch it back because it's just not going to do enough damage. Armarouge does get in here, though. They probably think that Crabominable is going to focus on attacking Primeape again. If Vulpix goes for another Icicle Spear into this slot, then they actually give them weak armor. And it's not going to do much damage. But let's see. They do just go for another Icicle Spear. And there's that weak armor boost. For each hit. Wow. Only 2 hits, but that's now plus 4 speed on Armarouge. There's the Indeedee. Armarouge goes for Calm Mind. So a lot of wild setup options on the Maushold team here. And now Primeape can throw off a Drain Punch into the Vulpix slot, get some recovery that way. Indeedee goes for Trick Room. So in theory that's bad news for Armarouge's speed boosts, except nothing on the field threatens Armarouge, so it doesn't care. It can it can go for another Calm Mind if it wants, or just throw off a stored power now. But with Primeape knocking out the Vulpix, I don't think you go for stored power. I think you could just set up some more. Because what's Indeedee going to do about it? Or you can throw off a Heat Wave, that works too. Although I don't know then why Primeape would attack Vulpix instead of Indeedee. But now we get the Moxie Salamence in. It protects. The Trick Room is pretty awkward for Spooky here. Indeedee uses Psychic into Primeape and accidentally activates Defiant. That kind of thing is always funny. And that makes it take a lot of damage from the Drain Punch. So Primeape can probably get off another attack here. It goes for Rage Fist into Salamence and just clean KOs. And there's the stored power to finish Indeedee off. So... yeah, I have no confidence in Lancer's Snow Mode at this point. Spooky was just able to set up around it no problem, and the Crabominable in the end is just not threatening enough. At least without any setup. But if it has Sword Stance or something, maybe that's a different story. But... and being forced into the Terra Fairy just to get around basically triple arrows and the Primeape's Drain Punch, but then the Terra doesn't really do much for them in the end. I don't think that was the right game plan, and I don't think they'll bring it Game 3. I think they can't let Spooky have all this setup, because we've seen now what that does. Lancers have the stronger offensive threats when they go to something like the Crawdaunt Salamence Haunter game plan. And if they see stuff like Rotom on the other side, they can overwhelm it like they did in Game 1. I think you have to go back to a plan like that, and you have to deny this kind of setup. I mean, I don't... well, okay, you can actually deny the beat up into Annihilate if you lead... or Primeape, excuse me. Primeape, if you lead Indeedee. I think you almost have to lead Indeedee here. And yeah, you can't... but you have to lead it with an offensive threat. Probably something like the Indeedee Crawdaunt lead from Game 1 is actually pretty solid again. Or you could do Indeedee Salamence, I think. But I think you have to go back to something like that. But let's look at Game 3 and see what actually happened. as it's Indeedee Salamence against Maushold Primeape. So cannot safely beat up here. As Indeedee actually fakes out Maushold, so now we know that the lack of Psychic Surge was intentional. You know what? Maybe they just didn't want to give Expanding Force to the other side. But they figured Indeedee could still be useful with Fake Out Redirection. I actually see the vision now, I think. Primeape takes the dual Wing Beat with its Terra, and I actually don't know whether that's 1 boost or 2 to Rage Fist. But in any case, Primeape is of course setting up the bulk up here because Maushold can't safely set it up. Maushold taunts the Indeedee. That's pretty smart to have available in this set. And it takes a Brick Break from Salamence. And Primeape is just getting going now. They can safely go for the beat up setup with Indeedee taunted. And Primeape is also at +2 attack and defense. And Primeape might just run away with this game. As Lancer's focused on getting rid of the Maushold. Maybe just not having enough here to knock out Primeape quickly. I feel like I might do the same thing in their position, but what did I say? You have to go offensive here and disrupt Spooky's setup, and they just didn't disrupt it. Missing that dual Wing Beat is bad for them too, as the Rage Fist takes out Salamence again, and now the Armarouge can start setting up. And I think Spooky just runs away with this. I think they brought the right Pokemon. I mean, we haven't seen what the last one is. I think it's probably Crawdaunt. You know, I think in a vacuum, Haunter is good here because it can keep up the offensive pressure better than something like Crabominable can. And you don't suffer from Vulpix doing practically no damage with Icicle Spear like in the last game. But Spooky just found a way to get it going anyway, as the Primeape just going for the Terra Fire and the bulk up. There still just wasn't enough damage on the field to threaten that. I almost think if you have Destiny Bond on Haunter, you have to show it here, but that Shadow Ball still does a lot to Armarouge, but there is the weakness policy, and the Haunter gets taken out. Yeah, so Spooky gets set up again with the Terrifier Primeape, and it's just too much for the Lancers to handle. Whatever they were doing with the Meowstic and the Rotom in Game 1 didn't work at all, but they didn't need it. They had something better. Boston Biblically Accurate Maushold take the win. Over now to another staff showdown. This time the Sandshrews against Big Time Sandrush. And let's see. We've got Sun on the Sandshrews side. They also brought the Indeedee, but not the Espeon or anything like that. I could see them having a Trick Room mode with Copperaja, maybe Hitmontop, certainly Torkoal. Or they can do Fast Sun stuff with Venusaur. I don't know what the Greninja's here for, but we'll find out. And on the other side, the duo of Serperior and Espathra again, which I would like to see put in work. The Volcarona also threatening strong special offense, or using things like Rage Powder, maybe Struggle Bug to make it harder for Sandshrews to beat Serperior. Unless they can just kind of spam Eruption with Torkoal or something. I don't know what the Tinkaton is here for. I really don't know what the Flamigo is here for. The only boosts that I could see it copying that are very useful are Speed Boost and Stellar Terra Blast contrary boosts. But maybe they will do something with that. Tinkaton could probably get Swords Dance. Could be something like that too. But let's find out. As it's Greninja Hitmontop lead against Serperior and Espathra, so we finally get to see them in action. Hitmontop fakes out Espathra this turn, and Greninja just goes right for a Protean Ice Beam into Serperior, but Serperior takes that really well. Is that an Assault Vest Serperior or something? Of course, I've been something of a Serperior player lately, so maybe I should take notes on this. In any case, it gets off the Leaf Storm into Greninja. It doesn't do a ton of damage, as Greninja is an Ice type, but this Serperior is running a bulky set one way or another. But it'll get to +2 here. Yeah, okay, I got confused. The Greninja didn't Terrasilize, it changed type with Protean. So Hitmontop now gets to go Terra Ghost to avoid... I don't know what, maybe just to not be one-shot by Lumina Crash? But Espathra actually uses Pounce into Superior to boost its speed. I'd never thought of that. That's a great tech. So Robbie taking full advantage of Contrary here. And Superior just still rolling with the Leaf Storm, knocking Hitmontop down to its Sash. Oh, narrowly taking another Ice Beam. And Espathra narrowly takes a Terror Blast. Sandshrews almost take 2 KOs here, but don't quite get either one. And so that's another opportunity for +1 speed Superior to do something big now with +4 special attack. But Greninja goes for Water Shuriken, so it's carrying that. Water Shuriken not used a ton, but of course it does have priority. Finishes off the Espathra. And Hitmontop has the Mach Punch, so actually I spoke too soon. Sandshrews do get their KOs. And we see Gothorita in the back with Tinkaton. We see that it's Assault Vest Greninja, which helps explain why it took so little from that first Leaf Storm. But Torkoal comes in. Could Torkoal close this game out? It takes a Gigaton Hammer right away. It doesn't do a lot of damage, but any nerf to Eruption is good. As Hitmontop shows the endeavor to go with the Focus Sash. Greninja's back. Tries to finish off Tinkaton, but is blocked by Protect. And, okay, the Expanding Force Gothorita, potentially able to take advantage of Psychic Terrain on the other side, but of course is not set up here. So it doesn't do a whole lot to Torkoal, and it only hits one target. We get the Yawn here into Gothorita. I think the Sandshrews should have this one. They still get the Water Shuriken off into Tinkaton this turn. Gothorita is just too weak to turn this around, and it's about to fall asleep. Or not, because it's burned. But I think we can just watch this one play out, as Gothorita will be... You know, it's bulky, but it'll be worn down and finally succumb to the burn damage. And the Sandshrews take game 1. Over to game 2 now, as it's Greninja and Hitmontop lead again against Gothorita and Superior. We'll see what the Gothorita does this time. We've already seen those items. Could have Fake Out. Of course, the Hitmontop has Fake Out. The Superior not protecting in this position, game 1, makes me more inclined to think it's AV Superior. And it takes Fake Out here. But so does Greninja, so back to square one, minus a little bit of chip damage. Ooh, okay, Superior out to Volcarona. Gothorita only takes 50% from Dark Pulse. This is a bulky Mon. Volcarona, I don't think has to be afraid of too much here. Water Shuriken even probably won't do too much to it, especially if it's nerfed by the sun. Terra Water on the Greninja to get around the Protean limit, of course, if only activating once per switch in now. But yeah, Volcarona takes that pretty well. Eats its berry, goes for Fiery Dance into Torkoal, doing decent damage with the Sun Boost. Torkoal's getting worn down quickly, can't threaten a strong Eruption. I mean, it might not even have Eruption, considering what we've seen of its set so far, but Robbie doing very well at neutralizing that threat, as the Superior comes back in now and goes for the Stellar Terra. You love to see it. Still just throws off a Leaf Storm. Venusaur takes that very well, but Superior is going to start going with his boost now, as Volcarona can safely finish Torkoal off, and both of these Pokemon are set up to +2. Hitmontop can fake something out, but of course Venusaur can't put Superior to sleep. It can go for a Sludge Bomb. Instead it puts Volcarona to sleep. But I think Superior would have taken a Sludge Bomb anyway, the way it's been playing. Sleep Powder doesn't do anything, because Superior, of course, going Stellar type, still keeps that Grass type special power. The Sun is gone. Water Shuriken only gets 2 hits and misses the KO on Volcarona. Probably would have done it with 2 more hits. Superior shows Giga Drain. So we've seen Leaf Storm, Giga Drain. We could probably assume it has Terra Blast. Anyway, Greninja's not quite knocked out, but Venusaur going for Frenzy Plant. I guess it doesn't have Sludge Bomb, but Frenzy Plant is pretty reckless anyway in a no Dynamax game. It really doesn't do much to the Superior, and Robbie is just rolling at this point. The Volcarona drops here to Water Shuriken, but it took so long to get rid of it, now the Greninja goes down. Robbie can bring in Espathra. Yep, Espathra. And that's game 2. We see here, I guess they didn't know that when a grass type uses Stellar Terra, it still has the powder immunity. But yeah, getting the Volcarona in front of the Hitmontop and Torkoal, just kind of able to run away with this game. They brought Superior in at just the right moment when the Torkoal threat was neutralized. And it looks like Venusaur just doesn't have the tools to deal with Superior. Greninja can do some damage with the Ice Beam, but even that hasn't always been shown to be enough. But I think it's anyone's set in Game 3. I mean, both of them have strong offensive modes. It's just a question of who can get going correctly, but Robbie is finding the right adjustments so far. Hitmontop Torkoal lead against Gothorita and Superior. Again. Torkoal just switches right out this time. So the Gothorita, oh, well, obviously doesn't have Shadow Tag. We've seen Frisk every game. Don't mind me. Greninja comes in. Superior just goes right for the Stellar Terra, but it's going to flinch this game as we get the double fake out stuff again. Volcarona comes in on a Dark Pulse, takes it pretty well. And Superior is just going for the Terra Blast setup this time. I'm not sure. We know it's Terra Water Greninja. I'm not sure why you go for Terra Blast there instead of Leaf Storm, unless they have a game plan with the Flamigo in the back. That could be something. Volcarona going for Struggle Bug will make Greninja's life even harder. And ignoring the Hitmontop means it doesn't do much with Endeavor. As Superior is still just rolling here. Is there any possibility that the Superior is choiced? Is that why it's going? Is that why it's locked into Terra Blast? I feel like Scarf Superior. Nope, there's the Leaf Storm. So I don't know why it was. I don't know why it was Terra Blast. Again, maybe it was just to set up Flamigo in the back, and maybe we'll find that out. As the Superior is about to take a nap. Actually, it just throws the boosts away to bring in Gothorita. Venusaur's in with no sun, but I don't know what Venusaur has to threaten here other than Sleep Powder. And it has to deal with Volcarona first, plus it gets flinched there. Knocked out by a crit Fiery Dance, don't know if that mattered. Torkoal crits right back, but Volcarona is too strong. And Superior coming back in to finish Torkoal off. Terra Blast will now be super effective. And yeah, the Volcarona was just the right adjustment. And the other side had no practical answer to it. The best they had was Greninja's Water Shuriken. But that just doesn't do enough damage, especially in Sun. And then Venusaur really doesn't have anything to threaten Volcarona. Hitmontop really doesn't have anything to threaten Volcarona. Torkoal just gets worn down too easily. So although the Superior put in a lot of work, and you love to see that, I think the Volcarona was the key Pokemon to that set. We move on to the Arctic Articunos versus Marvelous Bridge Malamars. The Malamars bringing only 2 of their 6 Dark types this week. The same number as the Psychic types that they brought. And fewer than the 3 Grass types on the other side. I don't know what the game plans are here, except that I know that Reckless Trico's team, again, Arctic Articunos, covering their own sets on this YouTube channel here, Reckless Trico, go check it out. But they've built their team around the combination of Blood Moon, Ursaluna, and Sinistcha, and we see it here again. Otherwise, I don't know what their game plan is with these, and I really don't know what the other side is cooking, so let's just get into it. Chestnut and Blood Moon Ursaluna against Bisharp and Metagross. Of course, anything could be a Zoroark. I think Zoroark is a very fascinating Pokemon in Draft. I did really badly with Hisuian Zoroark one PDL season, but I still think if you get the right bit of inspiration in the draft and in your team builder week by week, you can do a lot with Zoroark. But we'll see what happens here. I'm sorry, I really don't know what either coach is going for, so I think we better just watch it and find out. Ursaluna just going right for the Terra Normal. Both Pokemon take the explosion from Metagross pretty well. That was a bold play by that Metagross. And the Chestnut goes right for Belly Drum. Thanks to its Citrus Berry, it's still healthy enough to do that. Bringing Slowbro in on the Belly Drum Chestnut is an interesting choice because, of course, that's one of the few Pokemon that Chestnut will outspeed. Unless this is Flamethrower Zoroark, I think the Chestnut is just going to take a KO here, especially with the Hospitality from the Sinistcha. And that's an interesting setup there. The Blood Moon Ursaluna threatening immediate damage, especially with the Terra. But really the threat is the Chestnut going for Belly Drum, and then you have the Sinistcha to support that. That's a cool game plan. I like it a lot. It is Flamethrower Zoroark, though, and it takes out the Chestnut. So all that setup for nothing. And the Slowbro actually gonna be a threat, I think, into the rest of Trico's team, as we see that the fourth Pokemon is Blazebreed Tauros. I don't know what deals with the Slowbro at this point. Maybe you have a... Well, it's not even weak to Ghost anymore. Maybe you just cross your fingers and hope that Machagacha does big damage with a crit and a burn or something. But Sinistcha drops to the Zoroark Flamethrower too. And I think the Slowbro might just win the game at this point, as... Oh, wow. That Zoroark is putting in so much work. I'm glad I talked about it off the top there. The Zoroark with just the perfectly timed Flamethrower. So I praised Trico's setup. It's not perfect, obviously, but it is really smart, I think, to threaten damage with the Ursaluna and get the Chestnut going. And then you have the Sinistcha to support both Pokemon. That's an interesting approach to building this team. But the Zoroark, bluffing as a slower Pokemon, just hit the right attacks at the right times and completely dismantled it. And I don't know how Trico is going to adjust for the Zoroark at this point. I mean, that and the Slowbro. Electrode is probably your best answer to Slowbro if you're Trico. I mean, they have two other grass types that just got Flamethrowered to death. Electrode might be able to help with that too, being faster than Zoroark. I think bringing Electrode to this game makes a lot of sense, but they probably can't just bluff Zoroark in the lead spot again. But let's see. There's the Electrode with the Chestnut against Meganium and Slowbro, but you never know who might be a Zoroark. They just go right for Reflect. Wow, everybody's setting up screens. Everybody's setting stuff up. Chestnut protects itself. We get Reflect. Light Screen on the other side. I guess really trying to guard against the Electrode doing damage to the Slowbro. Makes sense. The Slowbro could be important considering the... I was going to say the work it put in last game. It didn't even do that much, but just it being there was really hard for Trico to adjust to. And the Slowbro sets up Trick Room here. So there's definitely not going to be a Zoroark game plan this time. Or if there is, it'll be in the back. But more likely they just didn't bring Zoroark after it put in so much work in Game 1, which makes a lot of sense. Terra Steel Chestnut, just gonna go for the setup here. Against Nasty Plot Slowbro, wow. Does Electrode attack Slowbro here? It does. But it only does 51%. Slowbro just boldly setting up Nasty Plot in his face. Well, but Meganium with the Heal Pulse. Just like Bayleaf in that other set. Meganium actually doing a lot to enable a setup mode here. Kind of showing a real niche for itself and for its pre-evolved form in at least draft play. And even +4 Chestnut doesn't one-shot the Meganium. So Slowbro gets a good chance to attack here, knock Electrode down to its Focus Sash. It does now get knocked out by Chestnut's Woodhammer, though. So for all that I've talked up that setup with the Nasty Plot, Heal Pulse, Trick Room stuff, it might just not be strong enough to break through. As we get Flareon in here. Takes an Intimidate from the Blazebreed Tauros, and Facade with no status condition doesn't do much back. Chestnut can heal itself with Drain Punch into the Meganium, so it does actually I shouldn't say unfortunately, I'm not taking sides here, but as much as I enjoyed the Nasty Plot Slowbro setup with the Meganium, it does look like it's just not strong enough to get past these fairly strong Pokemon on the other side. This time it'll be the real Bisharp, of course. Going for a Night Slash into the Blazebreed Flareon, or the Blazebreed Tauros tells me you just don't really have anything for it at this point. So letting the Slowbro go down was bad news for them. I feel like that can't be how you play the Slowbro in Game 3. Like, the key with the Slowbro is partly just that it shuts down Tauros, which is otherwise a big threat to your team. Like, Tauros kind of beats all these Pokemon except Slowbro. And then it's also strong-ish into Ursaluna, I guess. I feel like you have to bring Slowbro to a game, but you have to preserve it to be positioned against the Tauros. So maybe you try to do something with Metagross other than Explosion. I don't really know why the Metagross just went for Explosion like that. It wasn't that convincing. I mean, actually, you know what? It softened things up enough for Zoroark to get the KOs, so never mind. That actually did work. The Metagross Explosion was fine. But if you're Bryce going into Game 3, you probably bring the Zoroark back. I don't know whether you lead it again or not. But you can't do that Slowbro-centric game plan. The Slowbro, I think, is just a matchup piece for the Tauros here. But we'll see. Game 3. Let's go. Electroded Tauros against Bisharp and Metagross. And that's probably Zoroark, because it didn't get a Defiant boost. It could just be Inner Focus Bisharp, but I think in this matchup it's more likely Zoroark. Electro just goes for Reflect, and Metagross Psychic Fangs into Tauros, and yeah, Zoroark shows the Flamethrower there. It doesn't quite KO Electrode, so Electrode still has a chance to do something. If it has Volt Switch, maybe you do that here and bring, I don't know, Ursaluna or Chet. You can bring anyone in here. Haxorus is probably the least useful, but no, it just goes for Thunder Wave into the Zoroark. So Electrode sacrifices itself, probably. Yeah. To nerf Zoroark for the rest of the game. Chestnut's in now. Spiky Shield, Raging Bull knocks out Metagross, so Chestnut doesn't have to watch out for the Psychic Fangs anymore, but it does still have a problem with the Zoroark's Flamethrower. Zoroark is just being allowed to keep throwing off those Flamethrowers. Ursaluna's Vacuum Wave does not do very much through the Chople Berry. Good tech there by Bryce. Slowbro takes the Wood Hammer. Of course, you can throw Slowbro out here now with Tauros gone, and it can just be a bulky Pokemon that can do some damage back. And set Trick Room. And knock out the Chestnut. So there we go. I said that the Slowbro was a matchup piece for the Tauros, but once the Tauros was gone, it was free to just come in and play around the Chestnut like that, knock it out with Psychic. And the Zoroark put in so much work this set, and deservedly takes the win. Alright, Miami Palafins. Didn't forget your name this time. Versus Dallas Dragapults. No Pelipper on the Dragapults side, but they did bring Overquill. Maybe it'll be a similar set to last week, but who knows. I do have the duo of Rillaboom and Hawlucha again in the Bronzor. Well, don't see much of a Trick Room mode. Actually, you could probably do Trick Room mode with Overquill without Swift Swim. We'll see. But also, there could be rain coming this week anyway, as we see the duo of Klefki and Archaladon again. This time, definitely with their own Trick Room support, with Oranguru and Conkeldurr to do damage under Trick Room. But they also have the Noivern threatening a Tailwind mode. Well, they don't have a very convincing Tailwind mode apart from the Noivern, so I don't actually know what Noivern's here for. Well, let's find out. Oh, and of course, Persian also gets Rain Dance, though it doesn't have Klefki's defensive typing or Prankster. Anyway, Overquill, Hawlucha. Look at those shinies. Dallas Dragapults are secretly the awesome shiny Pokemon team. Maybe that was part of their draft strategy. I don't know. As it's Noivern and Conkeldurr on the other side. Weakness Policy, Hawlucha. No Grassy Seed. And Citrus Berry on the Overquill. So it's probably a bulkier kind of Overquill again. We're probably about to see Intimidate. We do. Maybe it's some Barb Barrage stuff again, but we'll find out. We know what that move does now. Archaladon comes right in, not wanting to deal with the Barb Barrage, perhaps, as Noivern does set up the Tailwind. This is an interesting thing to have here. They must really want it for something. And actually, Dragon Cheer with Draco Meteor Archaladon is a pretty good answer to what that's about. As Donphan takes a lot of damage. That was not a crit, so the Archaladon, I think, can't be holding a Razor Claw or a Scope Lens. Unless I just don't know my crit mechanics. In any case, it's Dragon Cheer into Draco Meteor Archaladon, but it does have a chance to not crit, as we see another non-crit right there. The Donphan, I mean, switching in on a Draco Meteor from full special attack. It's just not holding up anyway. The Overquill has been clicking Icy Wind so far. It's wearing down the Noivern, but not as quickly as you might think. So I hope the Overquill... oh, it's also shown Destiny Bond. I don't know what they're cooking with that Overquill, but Hawlucha's back. Terra flying our Chaladon. I don't know what the Noivern just was doing there either. Maybe just a misclick, honestly. But you have to select your target with Dragon Cheer, so yeah, I don't know what that was about. Maybe they thought the Dragon Cheer could be stacked. That might also explain why our Chaladon doesn't seem to have a crit boosting item. But now the Klefki gets in. Our Chaladon throws away its Dragon Cheer to get Conkeldurr in. And that Reflect from Klefki is... okay. Alright, well, the Reflect from Klefki is just not nerfing Hawlucha's damage enough. Brave Bird there. Rillaboom gets in. Hawlucha gets knocked out by Mach Punch after the Terra Dark. But the Overquill is back with the Intimidate again. But the Archaladon, even at -1 attack, just knocks Rillaboom out. And knocks Overquill out with the Draco Meteor. So, okay, the Palafins maybe don't have their Dragon Cheer game plan down exactly right, but I'll be honest, I don't understand what the Dragapults were going for there. I mean, we didn't see what the Donphan could do. We didn't really get to see what the Rillaboom could do either. There at least was fairly consistent offense coming from the Palafin side, even if it was a little bit janky. But yeah, this Overquill set I'm just not finding very convincing so far. But let's see what happens in Game 2. Donphan Hawlucha lead against Klefki Archaladon. We saw a weakness policy on Hawlucha, right? So do you think the Donphan goes for Ice Shard here into its partner? Archaladon goes right for Terra Flying. We get the Reflect. We do get the Ice Shard. That does a fair bit to Hawlucha, actually. But Hawlucha is free to just knock out the Klefki with a crit. Don't know if it mattered. And they're just trading blows here. But no Noivern coming in so far. So the Archaladon is not getting any crit boost at this point. Good double protect, good protect though from Hawlucha to the double target, but Donphan's Play Rough just doesn't do much back. Donphan it doesn't have a terrible attack stat, but it's just not strong enough in today's power crept formats. So I'm still kind of unconvinced by the Donphan in this set, even with the weakness policy set up, as Hawlucha goes down to a Flying Terra Blast there. That Thunder Punch was probably meant to help with the Hawlucha as well. Rillaboom goes Terra Ground Swords Dance immediately. And the Overquill is going back to Icy Wind, but the Palafins probably want Trick Room up at this point with the Oranguru. Or not. They are at least wearing our Chaladon down. I guess the Terra Ground on Rillaboom means it's not weak to Flying Terra Blast at this point. The Donphan is still just not hitting as hard as you want to see if you have it on your team. But Rillaboom is slowly, again, more slowly than you'd like with a Swords Dance set, working its way through. That's the Donphan does enough damage there with the Play Rough to take out Conkeldurr. So the Dragapults, I'm still not finding their team super convincing, but they are slowly grinding their way through this game. The Donphan might not be doing a lot of damage, but it's bulky enough and strong enough that the damage is building up over time. And I think the Palafins might have messed up Instruct mechanics there. Or their speed stats. As they instruct the Archaladon into Protect, but it just fails. I don't know that that's what they wanted to do. They might have wanted to go get 2 Terra Blasts there, but then they needed Archaladon to be slower than Oranguru. And yeah, I don't necessarily understand Ninja Meerkat's team, but it doesn't matter in this game. It's just wearing the opponents down. It's making the right switches and getting off solid, consistent damage over time. The Terra Ground Rillaboom I don't necessarily understand in this matchup, but turning off the weakness to flying means it can kind of just sit there and keep hitting things. And on turn 12, the Dallas Dragapults take game 2. And we go to game 3. Hawlucha Donphan lead against Noivern Archaladon. Noivern is indeed back. And maybe they'll get better Dragon Cheer luck this game. I think Dragon Cheer, Draco Meteor stuff, just going back to spamming that is probably the right way to play this at this point. As the Conkeldurr and Archaladon being forced to pivot back and forth and take Intimidates from the Overquill, which is not doing consistent enough damage in game 2. For all that I've griped about the Overquill set, its Intimidate support has been very helpful to the Dragapults so far. And yeah, I guess Draco Meteor crit game plan is just how you play around that at this point. They don't have a whole lot else to threaten Overquill. Actually, yeah, I was going to say on the special side, they don't have a whole lot else to threaten Overquill, period. So I'm actually starting to see the vision behind the Overquill set at this point. I just wasn't thinking about it in the correct way. I keep thinking of Overquill as a rain attacker or a Barb Barrage attacker like last game. But Overquill actually works very well in this matchup in that kind of bulky role. To support these other few Pokemon in grinding the opposing team down, like I said. So I apologize to Overquill. Maybe I wasn't familiar with your game, but this time the Donphan just goes for the Ice Shard into Noivern. Doesn't deny the Tailwind. Oh, but it's Terra Fairy Donphan, so forget everything I said about the Draco Meteor gameplay. This is just not going to work on that Pokemon. And Hawlucha does so much damage so quickly to Archaladon. It could have knocked it out there. Instead, it switches out to Overquill, playing it a little safer. Okay, it couldn't have knocked it out because of the Protect, but Archaladon is on the back foot already. It doesn't have its crit boost, and even if it does get that, it can't Draco Meteor Donphan. The Terra Blast does good damage there, but Archaladon is again being slowly worn down. Conkeldurr takes so much from that play rough. The Terra damage boost making the difference there, I guess. And with Conkeldurr gone and Archaladon low, I don't see how the Palafins turn this one around. Yeah, just protect the Donphan on the fake out turn, sure. And then what? Ice Shard. They try to Endeavor with Persian, but it hasn't taken any damage. Or the Overquill hasn't taken enough. Yeah, the Persian hasn't taken any damage. That is what I mean. Archaladon is just hard-pressed to stay on the field much longer, and without it, what do you do in this game? The Persian and Noivern don't really seem to have brought any offense. Archaladon is left just protecting to the point of failure, as Hawlucha and Overquill are just breaking right through here. And it's all up to Noivern, which is just going to drop to an Icy Wind. Sure, it knocks out Hawlucha, but yeah, that's it. And the Terra Fairy Donphan speeding the game plan up a little bit here. But overall, that was kind of a lesson in the risks, I think, of relying on a couple of strong Pokemon to carry you and bring a ton of support around them. I mean, Palafins brought 4 support Pokemon and 2 attackers that are okay, but against an opponent whose team is full of bulky Pokemon that don't mind grinding it out, doing damage over time, and finding their openings to exploit gradually. The Archaladon and Conkeldurr just didn't hold up. And then with 4 support Pokemon around them, there's no more offense to pick up the slack. So, yeah, my bad for doubting Ninja Meerkat's game plan there. It was actually very solid and showed that their team could do a lot without bringing the rain. Which is something I'll keep in mind when I go through the rest of their sets over the course of the season. Anyway, last set to cover this week is... what are these teams called? Ceaseless Samurotts versus Mobile Mudkips. The Samurotts threat again, bringing just a mix of strong Pokemon with possible Tailwind and Trick Room modes. I don't know that I have much else to say about it. The Low Kicks is interesting. As first impression, though, is not very threatening into any of these Pokemon except the Crocodile and maybe to an extent the Gardevoir. It's kind of just a strong mix of Pokemon on both sides, although Talonflame with 3 ground types is interesting. Feels like they want to spam Earthquake with something. Could be Moxie Crocodile to try to get going that way. Could be just Garchomp doing a ton of damage under Tailwind. They also have Gardevoir potentially running Telepathy. So I could see Earthquake spam here, in which case the Hydrapple might be important to shutting that down. But, I mean, let's just go. Last set of the week so far. Kilowattrel and Salazzle versus Talonflame and Garchomp. Could be Tailwind on both sides, except the Talonflame is made to flinch, doesn't have a Covert Cloak, so it's Tailwind on one side so far. And the Talonflame doesn't have priority anymore. Gale Wings, of course, is broken by that Fake Out, so it just gets knocked out with a Volt Switch turn 1. And the Mudkips will not get Tailwind this game, which could be huge when both teams have come out swinging. The Garchomp does get to try to set up a Scale Shot, which doesn't quite KO the Lokix. The Garchomp also badly poisoned by the Salazzle. Lokix goes right for the Terra Dark knockoff, taking out the Gardevoir immediately. Really taking full advantage of being the only side with Tailwind right now, as the Salazzle also gets a lot of chip on the Garchomp with Dragon Pulse. Salazzle does drop to a Scale Shot here, but Garchomp doesn't have much time left. I think the poison damage is about to take it out. They can just protect around that here. And I think the Tailwind is still making all the difference. I was wrong. It's Intimidate Crocodile. I thought it would be Moxie. But Terra Ground. Okay, I thought Hydrapple would protect here around, and just stall out the Garchomp. The fact that it didn't tells me it probably doesn't have Protect. So I don't know what it does have. Maybe a Choice or Assault Vest set. In any case, that Scale Shot miss is huge. I think Mudkips can win this if they land that Scale Shot, but instead Garchomp drops to a knockoff. Crocodile does go for the Earthquake, but of course Hydrapple takes that very nicely. And Fickle Beam chips it, and Kilowattrel finishes it off. So, both teams brought Tailwind game plans, but only one successfully got the Tailwind up. I guess maybe you lead Talonflame again in game 2, but you protect it this time around the Fake Out. But if that was an option, you'd think they'd do that game 1. But do they really not have Covert Cloak or Protect? I feel like you must have at least one of those when you're up against a fast Fake Out user. And if they get their Tailwind up, it might be a different game. Of course, if they land that Scale Shot into Hydrapple, it might be a different game. So they're very much still in it. I don't know that you need to drastically shake up your game plan or anything, and I don't know that they can with this team. In any case, Kilowattrel Salazzle again against this time Crocodile and Swampert, so they are shaking it up. And they're just going right for ground spam, which is pretty good into these two Pokemon actually. But they are granting the opponent a free Tailwind again. But the Swampert takes those two attacks pretty well. The Kilowattrel just drops to knockoff from Crocodile. First Impression takes out Crocodile. This is just a slugfest back and forth this set. This is a good one to have at the end here when my throat's getting a little sore and whatnot. Talonflame comes in, and Hydrapple switches in on Talonflame. Hydrapple, kind of a key bulky piece into the ground spam. I mean, it takes the Earthquake well, but Lokix could probably also take the Earthquake, and the Terra-Flying Talonflame just rips off a strong Brave Bird into Hydrapple. Yeah, I don't know why you throw Hydrapple into that. I feel like it needed to be protected against that kind of thing for at least a turn or two. They do get another First Impression if they want it, but going for the Terra Dark, well, we don't get to see what they went for. I mean, they didn't go for First Impression because Brave Bird doesn't have priority anymore. So they went for something slower than that, but it still just drops to a Terra-Flying Brave Bird even after turning off its weakness. Just last night I watched James Beck's video on the Mono Bug team, and as he demonstrated, Lokix just not that strong a Pokemon. And Salazzle goes down to flip turn. So yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm not doing a ton of analysis this set, but it's just a slugfest back and forth between two Tailwind teams. You love watching it, but again, I think a lot has come down to the way the Hydrapple has played. Dodging the Scale Shot in Game 1 was very lucky, but then they played kind of recklessly with it in Game 2. And it might be the key to Game 3, so I hope they can find an adjustment there. Or they could bring the Farigiraf and turn the tables with Trick Room. But instead, Kilowattrel and Talonflame staring each other down again. This time with Lokix and Gardevoir, which goes out to Crocodile. Gets the Intimidate on Lokix and Garchomp, so a double switch. And the Kilowattrel just can't Volt Switch out on anything here. Although I don't know why it doesn't go for Tailwind there. Why doesn't it go for Tailwind there? I really don't know. Maybe they were afraid of, like, Tailwind, something that KOs Kilowattrel. And then they never get Tailwind up. But you could... Yeah, maybe. These two ground types are going to be a problem. Well, okay. The Lokix actually does big damage into Crocodile with the U-turn. So Samurotts catch a bit of a break there. Bring Lokix right back in as they finish the Crocodile off and dodge another Scale Shot. The Scale Shot just not coming through for the Mudkips this set. Lokix turns off its fire weakness just in time to tank a Mystical Fire and land a big knockoff that KOs Garchomp. Oh man. You know what? Maybe James Beck was wrong about Lokix as it just one-shots the Garchomp. As once again... Well, I was going to say once again only the Samurotts have Tailwind up, but actually both sides have Tailwind now, which is appropriate as it all comes down to the wire here. The Lokix will go down, but so will the Talonflame. Kilowattrel really showing its worth as a Tailwind setter this set by having that type advantage over most other Tailwind setters. And Salazzle and Kilowattrel will just overwhelm the Gardevoir here as they get Fake Out and Volt Switch. Doesn't quite knock it to half. Farigiraf in the back is interesting. It'll get a special attack dropped by the Mystical Fire, but the Gardevoir is just not doing enough damage to it. And drops to a Shadow Ball. And in an absolute back and forth slugfest, the Kilowattrel, kind of the key Pokemon, preventing the Talonflame from getting going safely, except in Game 2 when Talonflame got its positioning right, but was not allowed to do that a second time. And I said that Hydrapple might be the key Pokemon, but they didn't even bring it to Game 3. Instead, Farigiraf's bulk came in handy at the end there. Talked about Kilowattrel already, and then they dodged a couple of Scale Shots, and that certainly helped them. But yeah, the stronger fast offense this week belongs to the Samurotts, and that is Week 2 so far. Probably one more set from Week 2 to cover next week with the Week 3 ones, but still an exciting season so far, and a lot of teams got their first win or their first loss this week, so very much still up for grabs who will win the championship. A lot of great strategies on all sides. Looking forward to continuing to cover it from Week 3 on. See you then.